and welcome back to another episode of the Employee to Boss podcast, and happy St. Patrick's Day. I wanted to come on here and do a solo episode all about how your podcast can make you lucky and bring in pots of gold. So with that being said, I'm sure you have lots of questions about how to actually start a podcast, how to grow your podcast, how to make money from your podcast. And these are all topics I've talked about before on the podcast, but I want to help you all in one episode. I want to put this all together for you so you don't have to go listen different places and it can really all make sense. So I would love to invite you all to a free webinar that I'm hosting with the Social Register Network on Tuesday, March 21st at noon Pacific time. This is a free event called How to Start a Podcast for Your Business. Now, this is one of my favorite topics to talk about because podcasts can have such a massive impact on the success of your business. And not only does it help you create new content, because content is what all business owners need, right? But it also increases your visibility. It lets you share what your brand mission is, and it lets you have those important conversations that you can't necessarily have on social media. Social media deletes after, stories delete after 24 hours, posts get lost in all of your other posts, but if you do your podcast correctly, it will be found for years to come. I am having people listen to my episode every single week from months ago, from a year ago. I always track my download numbers because I love seeing people listen to this podcast, but it always makes me so happy when someone finds episode 7 or episode 2. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was over a year ago and it's still having an impact on the people who are listening. So with that being said, if you go back to episode 5 of this podcast, you will come across an episode called Professional Networking, what it is, how to do it, and how to become a pro with Mary Grace Yunez, the owner of Social Register Network. So this event that I'm hosting is with the Social Register Network, Mary Grace Yunez. Her and I connected previously to record this episode, but we also have been connected for long before that. So that's really a testament to the networking. So Mary Grace invited me to do this live webinar for her audience that is open to the public. I will put the link in the show notes, but I will be talking all about what it actually takes to start a podcast, because so many people are worried about not having the money to hire an editor or not having the money to invest in a microphone or not knowing how to actually do social media marketing. And yes, these are all things that will make your life easier if you have the means to get them, but you don't need to start with all the fancy tech and with a fancy editor and, being perfect from the beginning. You grow with your podcast. My first episodes, I did not have a fancy microphone, but, I have been an editor for over 5 years now, so I knew everything it would actually take to edit my podcast, but that's really what I'm telling you about in this webinar. Even though I knew editing and I knew exactly how to start a podcast, and I've done it for so many other people, my podcast is growing with me and my business. When I started, I was a virtual assistant who focused on podcasting. Now I'm a podcast producer who only does podcast producing and marketing. And, as my business has evolved, I've included coaching programs, I've included courses, all of these super amazing things that have grown with me and my business. So I would love for you all to attend this live event. It is virtual. It is at noon on March 21st, noon Pacific time, I should say. And it also will include a Q&A session. I will be sharing so much valuable information that you will literally be able to start a podcast confidently after you attend. So I will put the link in the show notes, but if you want to type it in, It is tinyurl, so tinyurl.com/0321 speaker invite. So it will also be in the show notes, but if you want to type it, there it is. I am so looking forward to this, and I am so thankful for Mary Grace for inviting me. If you want to learn more about the Social Register Network, definitely listen to episode 5 of this podcast. But I will also put the link to Social Register Network in the show notes so you can look it up before the event and share it with your friends. It is free and open to everyone. So if you know someone who wants to start a podcast and has been talking about it and just needs to get off their butt and actually do it, send them the link and they will be so thankful, I guarantee you. All right, well, I will be back next week with an interview episode, and have a great St. Patrick's Day. I will talk to you all soon. Thank you for listening to the Employee to Boss podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I hope that you implement the actionable steps from this week's experts so you can get started with your business today. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Employee to Boss podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps more than you could ever imagine. Remember, a little progress each day leads to big results. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday. To access our show notes, transcripts, and courses, please check out espressopodcastproduction.com.